All right, guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday, February 3rd. Can you believe it? I'm going to get a little more situated for us. Ooh. So I stop blinking on you. I don't want to give anybody convulsions, right? For real. That's not a joke. Welcome, guys, to Fabulous Nuts ASMR. My name is Paige, and it is once again, hold on, this is not working. Maybe that'll help. I think so. All right, guys, it's once again time for your favorite and mine. Bedtime stories. Yes, it's time to get ready for bed. So welcome to Fabulous Nuts ASMR. My name is Paige, and tonight we are reading fairy tales by the Brothers Grimm. It was written in 1899, so it is in public domain. Also want to point out that it's being read by a woman that is extraordinarily and extremely dyslexic. So if you hear words that make no sense you've never heard before, or just plain are made up, welcome to my life. Blame it on the disability, not on my desire, right? So we have 4 stories that we're going to be reading tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. The first one is called Sweet Porridge. Try to welcome people as they come in. Years ago, there was a little girl who lived all alone with her mother, and they were so poor that they had nothing at all left in the house to eat. The little girl went to the forest to find a few sticks to make a fire, and on her way she met an old woman who gave her a little pot, which she said would prevent her from ever being hungry again. We read this last time. We did. All right. So we'll start on the next story then. The 12 Huntsmen. Once upon a time, there was a king's son who was engaged to a princess whom he dearly loved. One day, as he sat by her side, he received news that his father was lying at the point of great death and desired to see him before his end. So he said to his love, "Alas, I must go off and leave you, but take this ring and wear it as remembrance of me. And when I am king, I will return and fetch you home." Then he rode off, and when he reached his father, he found him very near death. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for being here, Patrick. It is the Brothers Grimm stories tonight. The king said, "Dearest son, I have desired to see you before my end. Promise me that you will marry according to my wishes." And he then named the daughter of a neighboring king who he was anxious should be his son's wife. The prince was so overwhelmed with grief that he could think of nothing but his father and exclaimed, "Yes, yes, dear father, whatever you desire shall be done." Thereupon the king closed his eyes and passed away. After the prince had been made king, he felt that he must keep the promise So he sent to and asked for the hand of the king's daughter, which was granted to him at once. Now his first love heard of this, and the thought of her lover's desertion grieved her so that she pined away and nearly died. Her father said to her, "My dearest child, why are you so unhappy? If there is anything you should wish for, say so, and you shall have it." Thank you guys for coming into our story time. His daughter reflected for a moment and then said, "Dear father, hi Naza, welcome in. We're reading fairy tales. Dear father, I wish for 11 girls as nearly as possible of the same height and age and appearance of myself." The king said, "If the thing is possible, your wish shall be fulfilled." And he had his kingdom searched till he found 11 maidens, the same height, size, and appearance as his daughter. Then the princess desired 12 complete huntsmen's suit to be made, all exactly alike, and the 11 maidens had to dress themselves in these suits while she put on the 12th. After this, she took leave of her father and rode off with her girls to the court of her former lover. Here she inquired whether the king did not want some huntsmen, and if he would not take them all into his service. The king said yes, he would gladly engage them all, so they became the 12 royal huntsmen. Now the king had the most remarkable lion, for it knew every hidden or secret thing. One evening, the lion said to the king, "So you think you've got 12 huntsmen, do you?" "Yes, certainly," said the king. "There are 12 huntsmen." "There you are mistaken," said the lion. "There are 12 maidens." "That cannot be," replied the king. "How can you prove it?" "Just have a number of peas strewed over the floor of your antechamber," said the lion, "and you will soon see men have strong, firm tread, so that if they happen to walk over the pea, not one of them stir, but girls trip and slip and slide so that the pea rolls all about." Welcome to our soothing bedtime reading, guys. The king was pleased with the lion's advice and ordered the peas to be strewn in his anteroom. Fortunately, one of the king's servants had become very partial to the young huntsmen, and hearing of the trial they were to be put to, he went to them and said, "The lion wants to persuade the king that you're only girls," and told them all the plot. The king's daughter thanked him for that hint, and she said to her maidens, "Now make every effort to tread firmly on the peas." Hey, Nikki, welcome on in. Appreciate you. Nikki is our member of our channel, so thank you. Next morning, we'll visit at the end of the story. Next morning, when the king sent for his 12 huntsmen, and they passed through the anteroom, I lost my place. Okay. Which was strewn with peas. They tried so firmly and walked with such a steady, strong step that not a single pea rolled away or even made a stir. After they were gone, the king said to the lion, "There now, you see, they walk like men." "Because they knew they were being put to the test," answered the lion, "and they made an effort just have a dozen spinning wheels placed in the anteroom. When they pass through, you'll see how pleased they will be, quite unlike any man. The king was pleased with the advice, and he desired 12 spinning wheels to be placed in his anteroom. But the good-natured servant went to the huntsmen and told them about the fresh plot when the king's daughter was alone with her maidens. She exclaimed, "Now, pray, make a great effort and don't even look at the spinning wheels." When the king sent for the 12 huntsmen the next morning, they walked through the anteroom without even glancing at the spinning wheels. Then the king said once more to the lion, "You've deceived me again. They are men. They never once looked at the spinning wheels." The lion replied, "They knew they were being tried, and they did violence to their feelings." But the king declined to believe the lion any longer. So the 12 huntsmen continued to follow the king, and one day while they were all out hunting, news was brought that the intended bride might soon be expected. When the true bride heard of this, she fell fainting to the ground. The king feared something had happened to his dear huntsman, ran up to help, and began drawing off his gloves. When he saw the ring which he had given to his first love, and as he gazed into her face, he knew her again, and his heart was so touched that he kissed her, and she opened her eyes and cried, "I am thine, and thou art mine, and no power on earth can alter that." To the other princess he sent a message to beg her to return to her own kingdom with all speed, for he said, "I have got a wife, and he who finds an old key again does not require a new one." Thereupon the wedding was celebrated with great pomp, and the lion was restored to royal favor, for after all, he had told the truth. Welcome in, guys, to tonight's soothing reading. If you haven't done so, please go ahead and vote for what we should read next. I have a really interestingly boring story to read, or we can continue with fables and stories, fairy tales. So give a vote and let me know. We'll check it out at the end of the book. Hello, Blessed. Thank you for watching the ads. And as you come on in, Nikki's Happy Lifestyle, welcome to the chat. I sure do appreciate you dropping in. We have Nazar up top. Naza is a poet, and he writes. So if you all don't know Naza, that's who he is. And of course, the one and only Patrick is here with us. All right, let's continue our stories. Spindle, shuttle, and needle. There once lived a girl who lost her father and mother when she was quite a tiny child. Her godmother lived all alone in a little cottage and earned her living by spinning and weaving and sewing. The old woman took the little orphan home with her and brought her up in a good, pious, industrious habits. When the girl was 15 years old, sorry guys, I gotta turn the light up a little bit. When the girl was 15 years old, the godmother fell ill and calling the child to her bedside said, "My dear daughter, I feel that my end is near. I leave you my cottage which will at least shelter you, and also my spindle, my weaver shuttle, and my needle with which to help earn your bread." Then she laid her hands on the girl's head, blessed her, and added, "Mind and be good, and then all will go well with you." With that, she closed her eyes for the last time, and when she was carried to her grave, the girl walked behind her coffin, weeping bitterly, and paid her all the last honors. After this time, the girl lived all alone in the little cottage. She worked hard, spinning, weaving, and sewing, and her old godmother's blessing seemed to prosper all she did. The flax seemed to spread and increase, and when she wove a carpet or a piece of linen or made a shirt, she was sure to find a customer who paid her well, so that not only did she feel no want herself, but she was able to help those who did. Now, it happened that about this time the king's son was making a tour through the entire country to look for his bride. He could not marry a poor woman, and he did not wish for a rich one. "She shall be my wife," he said, "who is at once the poorest and the richest." When he reached the village where the girl lived, he inquired who was the richest and who was the poorest woman in it. The richest was named first. The poorest, he was told, was the young girl who lived alone in the little cottage at the far end of the village. The rich girl sat at her door, dressed out in all her best clothes, and when the king's son came near, she got up and went to meet him and made him a low curtsy. He looked well at her, said nothing, but rode on further. When he reached the poor girl's house, he did not find her at the door, for she was at work in her room. The prince reined in his horse, looked in the window through which the sun was shining brightly, and saw the little girl sitting at her wheel, busily spinning away. She looked up, and when she saw the king's son gazing at her, she blushed red all over, cast her eyes down, and went on spinning till the king's son had ridden off. Then she stepped to the window and opened the lattice, saying, "The room is so hot." But she looked after him as long as she could see the white plumes in his hat. Then she sat down at her work once more and span on, and as she did so, an old saying came into her head, and she began to sing, "Spindle, spindle, go and see if my love will come to me." Lo and behold, the spindle leapt from her hand and rushed out the room, and when she had recovered from her surprise to look after it, she saw it dancing merrily through the fields, dragging a long golden thread after it. The girl, having lost her spindle, took up the shuttle and seated herself at her loom, began to weave. Meantime, the spindle danced on, and just as it had come to the end of the golden thread, it reached the king's son. "What do I see?" he cried. "The spindle seems to wish to point out the way to me." So he turned his horse's head and rode back beside the golden thread. Meantime, the girl who sat weaving sang, "Shuttle, we've both wed and wharf, bring my love beneath my roof." Oh, the shuttle instantly escaped her hand, and with one bound set out the door. On the threshold it began weaving the loveliest carpet that was ever seen. Roses and lilies bloomed on both sides, and in the center a thicket seemed to grow, with rabbits and hares running through it, sages, fawns peeping through the branches, while on the topmost boughs sat birds of brilliant plumage, and so lifelike one almost expected to hear them sing. The shuttle flew from side to side, and the carpet seemed to almost grow of itself. The shuttle had ran away, and the girl sat down to sew. She took her needle and sang, "Needle, needle, stitch away, make my chamber bright and happy." And the needle promptly slipped from her fingers and flew about the room like lightning. And in next to no time, the table and benches were covered with green cloth, the chair with velvet, and elegant silk curtains hung before the window. The needle had barely put in its last stitch when the girl spied the white plumed hat of the king's son, who was being led back by the spindle with the golden thread. He dismounted and walked over the carpet into the house. And when he entered the room, there stood the girl, blushing like any rose. "You are the poorest and yet the richest," he said. "Come with me, you shall be my bride." She said nothing, but held out her hand. Then he kissed her and led her out, lifted her on his horse, and took her to his royal palace, where the wedding was celebrated with great rejoicing. The spindle, the shuttle, and the needle were carefully placed in the treasury and were always held in the highest honor. Thank you guys for coming in and listening to our soothing bedtime stories. I hope you're enjoying it. Give me a vote for what do you want to see next. The 12 Brothers. There was once a king and a queen. They had 12 children. Oh dear, they were all boys. One day the king said to his wife, "If our 13th child is a girl, all her 12 brothers must die so that she may be very rich and the kingdom hers alone." Well, that's kind of hard to think about. Then he ordered 12 coffins to be made and filled them with shavings and placed a little pillow in each. Then he put away in a room, gave the key to his wife, and bade her tell no one of it. The queen grieved over the sad fate of her sons. The youngest boy said to her one day, "Dear mother, why are you so sad?" "My child," she answered, "I may not tell you the reason." But he left her no peace till she showed him the 12 coffins. Then she said, "My dearest Benjamin, your father has had these coffins made for you and your 11 brothers, because if I bring a girl into this world, you are all to be unalived and buried in them." Well, she wept bitterly as she spoke, but her son comforted her and said, "Don't cry, mother. We'll manage to escape and we'll fly for our lives." "Yes," replied his mother, "that is what you must do. Go with your 11 brothers out into the world and let one of you always sit on the highest tree you can find and keep a watch on the tower of the castle. If I give birth to a little son, I will wave a white flag, and then you may safely return. But if I give birth to a little daughter, I will wave a red flag, which will warn you to fly away as quickly as you can, and may heaven have pity on you." Then she blessed her son, and they set out into the wood. They found a very high old oak, and there they sat and turned about, keeping their eyes always fixed on the castle tower. On the 12th day, Benjamin noticed a flag waving, but alas, it was blood red, the sign which told them they must all leave fast. When the brothers heard this, they were very angry and said, "Shall we suffer death for the sake of a girl? Let us vow that whatever we shall meet one of her sex, she shall be unalived at our hands." Oh goodness, they were rather angry. Remember, this is a fairy tale written in 99 by the Brothers Grimm. Then one of them went into the wood, and in the middle of it they came upon a little enchanted house which stood empty. Here, they said, let us take up our abode, and you, Benjamin said, and you, Benjamin, shall keep house for us. We will go out and fetch the wood. They brought their spoils home to Benjamin, who soon learned to make them into the daily dishes. So they lived for 10 years, and the time slipped merrily away. In the meantime, their little sister was at home and was growing up quickly. She was so kind-hearted and of the fair countenance. She had a golden star right in the middle of her forehead. One day, the girl, looking from her window, saw 12 men's shirts hanging up to dry and asked her mother, who do these shirts belong to? Surely they're too small for my father. And the queen answered sadly, dear child, they belong to your 12 brothers. Where are my 12 brothers? Said the girl. I have never even heard of them. Heaven alone knows in what part of the wide world they are wandering, replied her mother. And she took the girl and opened up the locked room and showed her the 12 coffins filled with shavings and with the little pillows laid in each. These coffins, she said, were for your brothers, but they stole away before you were born. Then she told her all that had happened. Her daughter said, don't cry, dearest mother. I will go and seek my brothers till I find them. So she took the 12 shirts and went into the big woods. She walked all day long and came in the evening to the little enchanted house. She stepped in and found a youth who, marveling at the golden star on her forehead, asked her where she came from and whether she was going. I am a princess, she answered, and I am seeking for my 12 brothers. I mean to wander as far as the blue sky stretches till I find them. Then she showed him the 12 shirts which she had taken with her, and Benjamin saw that it must be his sister, and said, I am your youngest brother. So they wept for joy. After a time, Benjamin said, dear sister, there is still a little difficulty. Oh, yeah. For we had all agreed that if any girl we should meet should be unalived at our hands, because it was for the sake of a girl that we had to leave our kingdom. But, she replied, I will gladly be unalived if I can restore my 12 brothers to their own. No, he answered, there is no need for that. Hide under the tub till our brothers come in, and I will make matters right with them. She did as she was bid, and soon the others came home from the chase and sat down to supper. Well, Benjamin, what's the news? They asked. Benjamin replied, I have nothing to tell you. I have nothing to tell. No, they answered. Then he said, well, now you've been out in the woods all day, and I've stayed quietly at home, and all the same I know more than you do. Then tell us, they cried. He answered, only on condition that you promise that the first girl we meet we shall not unalived. She shall be spared, only tell us the news. Then Benjamin said, our sister is here. And he lifted the tub, and the princess stepped forward, looking so charming that they all fell in love with her on the spot. They arranged that she should stay at home with Benjamin and help him in the housework, while the rest of the brothers went out into the woods and shot hares and roe deer, birds and wood pigeon. One day, the two at home prepared the finest feast, and when they were all assembled, they sat down and ate and drank and made merry. Now there is still a little garden around the enchanted house in which there grew 12 tall lilies. The girl plucked the flowers, meaning to present one to each of her brothers as they sat at supper, but hardly had she plucked the flowers when her brothers were turned into 12 ravens who flew croaking over the wood, and the house and garden vanished also. So the poor girl found herself left all alone in the wood, and she looked around and noticed an old woman standing beside her who said, "My child, what have you done? Why didn't you leave the flowers alone? They were your brothers. Now they are changed forever into ravens." The girl asked, sobbing, "Is there no means of setting them free?" "No," said the old woman. "There is only one way in the whole world, and that is so difficult that you won't free them by it, for you would have to be dumb and not laugh for 7 years, and if you spoke a single word, the so but an hour were wanting to the time, your silence would all have been in vain, and the one word would slay your brothers." Then the girl said to herself, "If that is all, I am quite sure I can free my brothers." So she climbed on the high tree and spun all day long, never laughing or speaking. One day, a king who was hunting looked up and beheld a beautiful princess, and he was so enchanted with her beauty that he asked her to be his wife. She gave no answer, but nodded slightly with her head, then climbed down the tree, and he put her on his horse and bore her home to his palace. The marriage was celebrated with much pomp and ceremony, but the birds neither spoke nor laughed. The bride neither spoke nor laughed. When they had lived a few years happily together, the king's mother began to slander the young queen and said to the king, "She is only a low-born beggar maid, and that you have married. Who knows what mischief she is up to? If she is deaf and cannot speak, she might at least depend upon it. Those who don't laugh have bad consequences." At first the king paid no heed to her words, but at last he let himself be talked over and condemned his wife to be unalived. So a great fire was lit in the courtyard of the palace where she was to be burnt. But just as she had been bound to the stake, the flames were licking on her garments. The very last moment of the 7 years had come. Then all of a sudden a whooshing sound was heard in the air, and 12 ravens were seen flying overhead. They swooped downwards, and as soon as they touched the ground, they turned her into her 12 brothers, and she knew that she had freed them. They quenched the flames and put out the fire and unbid their dear sister from the stake. They kissed and hugged her again and again, and now that she was able to open her mouth and speak, she told the king why she had been dumb and not able to speak. The king rejoiced greatly when he heard how she was innocent, and they all lived happily ever after. Wow, that one story was so much like the Seven Swans. Like they just kind of recycled here. These tricky little Grimm brothers. I never ever realized that. Like even some of the words were exactly the same. Wow, interesting. And this is their book, not a republished one. Well, I guess, yeah, it was translated to English, but okay. Another story tonight. This one is called Jack, My Hedgehog. There was once a farmer who had lands and money but no children. At the market town, other farmers would ask him how it came about that he was childless. At length he exclaimed, "I must have been a child of some sort of kind, even should it only be a hedgehog. I must have a child of some sort or kind, even if it should only be a hedgehog. Soon after, his wife gave birth to a child, but though the lower half of the little creature was a fine boy, from the waist upward, it was a hedgehog. His mother said to her husband, "You have cursed the child." The farmer said, "I suppose the creature must be christened, but I don't see what to call him." The wife replied, "There is nothing we can possibly call him but Jack, my hedgehog." When they took him to be christened, the parson said, "We'll never be able to put that child in a decent bed on account of his prickles," which was true. But they shook down some straw for him behind the stove, and there he lay for 8 years. One day there was a fair at the town. The farmer asked his wife if he should bring what he should bring her from it. Some meat and a couple of big loaves for the house. She said the maid wanted a pair of slippers and some stockings. "Oh, Jack, my hedgehog, what shall I bring you?" He replied, "Daddy, do bring me a bagpipe." When Jack got his bagpipes, he said, "Daddy, go to the smithy and have the house cock shod for me. Then I'll ride off and trouble you no more." When the cock was shod, Jack mounted his back and rode off, followed by all the pigs and donkeys which he had promised to look after. Reaching the forest, he made the cock fly into the top of the tree with him, and there he sat looking after his pigs and donkeys for several years, till he had quite a big herd. All this time his father knew nothing about him. As he sat up in the tree, he played away on his bagpipe, and it drew the loveliest music from them. One day a king passed close by, and hearing the music, sent a servant to find out where it came from. The man saw a creature which looked like a bird with a hedgehog. It looked like a rooster with a hedgehog sitting on it, perched up in a tree. The king desired the servant to ask the strange creature if he knew the way to his kingdom. Jack, my hedgehog, stepped down from his tree and said he would show the king the way to his home if he would give him his written promise to let him have whatever first met them on his return. The king thought, "That's easy enough to promise. I can just write what I choose." So he wrote something, and Jack pointed out the way, and the king got safely home. When the king's daughter saw her father returning, she ran to meet him, and then he told her how he had been obliged to give a written promise to bestow whatever he first met when he got home on an extraordinary creature which had shown him the way. But as the creature certainly could not read, he wrote that he would not give it anything at all. After a time, another king lost his way. He too heard the music and set to find out hints where it came. A man came under the tree and asked Jack what he was doing up there. "I'm minding my pigs and donkeys." "What do you want?" was the reply. The servant told him that they'd been lost their way and wanted someone to show it to them. Down came Jack, and he told the second king that he would show the way if he promised to give him the first thing he met in front of his royal castle. The king promised, and then Jack rode on in front, pointing out the way, and the king reached his own country safely. His only daughter also ran to meet him. He told how he had lost his way and might never have reached home but for the strange creature, half man, half hedgehog, which rode on a rooster and sat up in a tree making lovely music, which had shown him the way. He also told her how he had pledged his word to give the creature the first thing which met him outside the castle gate, and he felt very sad at the thought that she had been the first thing to meet him. The princess comforted him and said she should be quite willing to go with Jack my Hedgehog whenever he came to fetch her, because of the great love she bore for her father. Jack herded his pigs, and they increased in number till the forest seemed full of them. So he decided to live there no longer and sent word to his father, who was much vexed at the news, for he thought Jack had passed away a long time ago. Then said Jack, "Daddy, let the blacksmith shoe my rooster once more, and I shall ride off and never come back again." So the father had the rooster shod and rejoiced at the idea of getting rid of his son. And Jack my Hedgehog set off for the first kingdom, where the king had given orders that if anyone should be riding a rooster carrying a bagpipe, he was on no account to be allowed to enter the palace. So when Jack rode up, the guards charged him with their bayonets, but he put spurs on his rooster and flew up over the gate to the king's windows and called out that if the king did not redeem his promise, both he and his daughter should pay for it with their lives. Then the king entreated his daughter to go with Jack and so save both their lives. The princess and Jack my Hedgehog, with his rooster and pipes, took leave, and the king never expected to set eyes on them again. But when they left the town, Jack tore all the princess's smart clothes off of her and pricked her all over with his bristles, saying, "That's what you get for treachery. Now go back. I will have no more to say to you." And he hunted her home, and she felt disgraced till her life's end. Wow. Then Jack rode with his rooster and bagpipes to the country of the second king. Here orders were given that if Jack ever came, the guards were to present arms, the people to cheer, and he was to be conducted triumphantly into the palace. When the king's daughter saw Jack my Hedgehog, she was startled, for he certainly was very peculiar looking, but she considered that she had given her word and it couldn't be helped. She made Jack welcome, and they were betrothed, and at dinner he sat next to her at the royal table. When they retired to rest, Jack told the princess no harm would befall her. Then he begged the king to place 4 men outside his door and to have them make a big fire. When he was about to lie down, he would creep out of his hedgehog skin and leave it lying at the bedside. Then the men must rush in, throw the skin into the fire, and stand by till it was entirely burned up. When it struck 11, Jack my Hedgehog went into his room, took off his skin, and left it at the foot of the bed. The men rushed in, seized the skin, threw it on the fire, and directly it was all burned. Jack was released from his enchantment and lay in his bed in man's form from head to toe, and very handsome. The princess was greatly pleased the next day. The marriage ceremony was performed, and the king bestowed his kingdom on Jack my Hedgehog. I've never heard that one, have you? So that is the end of the reading for tonight. I had missed a day reading, so I have 4 more stories to read. But what did you guys vote on? Let's take a little time. We'll close that up, and we have some time to visit. Yes, I hope everybody is having a great time. Let's see what we voted for. for the next time in the poll. Okay, I hope everybody had time to vote. Let me see what the poll says. Okay, so 80% want a fairy tale. We will do a fairy tale. And what I will do is in the membership, I will read an exclusive boring story. How about that? And I'll make it a membership thing. Or, yeah, I'll do one there, but I think I'll do one also as a one of my weekly uploads. I'll read a boring story because I actually have the official story of Crisco oil that I've been meaning. It's really kind of interesting to read. Also, I think what's really interesting is some old the old cookbooks. I find those really interesting because I don't cook a lot of game. I just don't cook game, squirrels, pheasants. I don't cook that kind of thing. I haven't even cooked rabbit, and it was such a popular, meat. So those are some things to think about. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you for spending an hour with me. Like I said, there's 4 more stories to read in this fairy tale. We will finish it up Thursday night at 7:30. Hope you guys are enjoying these fairy tale readings. I adore reading. So we shall do more of them. Also, be sure you turn your notifications on because there's so much happening as I revamp the channel to be more of a intentionally sleep and soothing channel. Marley is snoring very hard next to me. So with that being said, I just want to thank you once more for being here. Nikki's Happy Lifestyle. She has been a loyal member of mine. And also Patrick, everybody else. Let's see. Blessed Life Journey. Thank you for all of your support. I will see you in the morning. Naz, thank you. Thank you for coming in and saying hey. I'll be sure to come see you guys. With that being said, have a fabulous night. Oh, don't forget midday meditation. If you just want some background music, just kind of a soothing image or what I consider soothing, come on over to midday meditation. And they're going into a podcast right now. Good night, everybody. Get some good sleep. Good night, Nikki.